Hey, and welcome to another episode of Motors and Meats. In today's episode, I want to give you guys a 3,000 mile ownership review of this car. I got the car about 2 months ago now, and I've already done 3,000 miles in it. I did one trip over to Atlanta and back in the car since getting it, plus the trip home to Mississippi from Dallas where I bought the car. That paired up with all of the regular day-to-day driving, because this is my daily driver now, and that added up quickly to 3,000 miles, actually a little bit over that so far. First things first, there is absolutely no doubt that I love this car. It is so cool. It is one of the fastest cars I've ever driven, maybe the fastest car I've ever driven. I'm trying to think if I've ever driven a faster car than this. It's definitely faster than the 996. One of my favorite things to do is to use launch control. You put the thing in Sport Plus mode, and then you hold your foot on the brake, your left foot on the brake, and then you step your right foot to the floor, all the way to the floor, because it's got like a little click past like the full throttle, and you go all the way down, and it jumps up to about 6,500 RPMs and says launch mode ready or active or something, and then you take your foot off the brake, and then you go like crazy. And then on the absolute other end of the spectrum, I can stick the thing in normal mode and just putt around. So when I take the kids to school in the mornings, whenever I'm in town, I just leave it in normal mode, and it's just a car. It's just as good around town as my Volvo. So putting around, it can be nice and quiet. I've got it in sport mode right now, but I'm kind of in traffic a little bit, so maybe you can hear it, maybe you can't. Turning it off and putting it back into normal mode. Putting it back into normal mode doesn't make it any louder or quieter. I don't have that guy was loud. I don't have a sports exhaust in this car, so that's not something that makes a difference. But whenever you get up into the high revs in this car, it goes crazy. Here we go. Let's see, sport mode and Florian. Okay, that's illegal. Slow down. Yeah, so back to normal mode so you can hear me. There you go, nice and quiet. I love that. I can just talk to you in a normal voice. I don't have to shout. Sure, there's that stereotypical 911 tire road noise coming into the cabin, but that's going to be true no matter what 911 you have. There's not going to be a 911 that's quiet like a Cadillac, but you wouldn't want that. That would be dumb. I really, really love the paint color of this car. It's basalt black, so just looking at it at night or, just from a distance, it's just black. But if the sun is shining on it brightly, then it has almost a purple hue, and you can see the sparkles, kind of gold color sparkles in the paint, and that really makes me want to put some gold wheels on this car. Maybe some BBS. I don't know if I want to spend the money on BBS. I may just powder coat the ones that I've got. One thing compared to the 996 where I think I like the 996 better, and that was the consistency of the driving style. So the 996 doesn't have any modes. It was manual. Everything was, no traction control, just as basic as you could possibly get. Normal mode, and it goes eventually. But what that meant for the 996 was that every time I got in it, the driving experience had the exact same potential. This one, I just stomped it back there after I'd already started rolling. It was already up in like 3rd or 4th gear or something because I'm in normal mode. I'm putting it back in sport mode just because I like to know that when I step on the gas, it's going to go the way I want it to go. So my 996 was a 99 model. That was the last year they used a cable throttle. So I literally had a cable attached from my foot to the throttle back in the engine bay. And the responsiveness of that was completely predictable. This, I have gotten myself into, almost into trouble, pulling into traffic a couple times because I went from putting around normal mode to suddenly, needing to get out into traffic quickly and get it rolling first and then stomp it, and it just kind of, just like it did back there. And that was a little nerve-wracking the first time that I let that happen. And you're not going to have the thought process in mind in that moment to reach down and smash the sport button right before you pull out, or at least I don't. Another thing that I really like about the 996 compared to this was that even though that car was lowered on H&R lowering springs, I never scraped. This one is not lowered. It is an S model, so it sits a little lower than a standard Carrera, and I still scrape in certain places that I never scraped before in the 996. But I mean, it looks a lot cooler sitting down low like that. So what are some things that I'm going to do with this car? I haven't done much with it yet. I've changed out the steering wheel. I did a video on that. Here's a link to that right there. And it had the silly buttons instead of the paddles, and those are just awful. They're terrible, and it's way too easy and inexpensive to live with if you like to shift. Now, if all you want to do is drive in automatic mode, who cares? Leave it alone. You can buy my old steering wheel. I haven't put it on eBay yet, but I will, and I'll make most of the money back off of it that I spent buying this sport design wheel. Some other things I'm going to do with the car: I'm going to replace the rear muffler, because this has 3 mufflers unlike the 996. I'm going to replace the rear center muffler with a set of crossover pipes. And from what I've read, it says that doesn't reduce any of the back pressure, and it frees it up to breathe a little bit more. I don't know how you can have one without the other, but the main thing is it makes it sound better even at low speeds, and it's supposed to give it a little bit more high, raspy sound, almost Ferrari-like. I definitely don't want any drone in the cabin. With my Fab Speed Super Cups that I had on my 996, I had a lot of drone in the cabin at certain RPMs. I would find myself running in 5th gear at about 80, 85 miles an hour down the highway just to avoid the droning sound that came from driving in 6th gear at that speed. One other thing that I want to do to the car, I mentioned the wheels, of course, some kind of gold wheels. I've always wanted a black car with gold wheels. I blame that on Smokey and the Bandit, probably. I was just thinking how ridiculous it would be if I put like a big eagle on the hood of this thing in gold, and gold wheels and gold trim. And no, we're not going to make it a Smokey and the Bandit car, but that would be funny, right? Also, I mentioned the stance on this one. It hasn't been lowered. I definitely want to put some H&R lowering springs on it. They say that lowers it about 1.2 inches, and everything I read about it says that really it's more like 1.5 inches, and that would be cool. Yes, I will scrape a little bit more. Do I care? No. The underside of the front bumper cover on the 996 was scraped to pieces, and this one deserves to be scraped too, because it deserves to be driven. It deserves to be used like it's supposed to, and it deserves to look as cool as possible at the same time. So we're going to do that. One thing that's not really the car's fault that I just am upset with myself about is that I have been living with automatic mode a bit too comfortably, and I started the other day just thinking I'm going to stick it in a manual and I'm going to leave it in manual, and I did. I drove a whole day, probably 150 miles in nothing but manual. I do really like that it handles the downshifting for you if you let it. You can definitely downshift by your own control, but if you leave it in manual mode and just slow down, as soon as you get down to a speed that bottoms out the transmission like that, there's 5th, 4th, 3rd. I'm going 20 miles an hour, and it's down. Now it's down to 3rd, 15 miles an hour. Yeah, but that's in sport mode. I wonder if Sport Plus, even in manual mode, does not automatically downshift at 4,000 RPMs like it does when you're in automatic mode. Check it out. Here's Sport Plus. Here's automatic. And I'm going to take off. And now I'm going to stomp the brake and listen to it downshift. 3,500 right there, it downshifted. Second gear, it lets it drop on down. But anything above second gear automatically downshifts there, and it doesn't upshift until the red line. That was quick. That's a lot of fun. But I need to work on my manual skills, because when I get on track, I definitely want to use manual. Closing thoughts, do I love this car? Absolutely. Do I miss my 996? Sure I do. Do I miss a manual transmission instead of paddles? Sure, sometimes. But I cannot wait till the first time I get this thing on track. There's a corner at Barber Motorsports Park, the museum complex, right before you go under the bridge out of the museum, where I could never get all the way down to second gear with my manual 996 because just everything was happening too fast, and I really needed to be in second to optimize the corner exit. I will not have any problem getting into second with this because it's just blip, blip, blip. There we go. Anyway, thanks for watching, and stick around, see what we do with the car. Put in the comments if you have any ideas that I should do to the car. Any feedback, I appreciate it. Thanks again.